We continue now at the top of Daf Dalid Amud Aleph in Meseches Shabbos. This is Shabbos Daf 4a. The Gemara here was discussing a contradiction in Brises. Let's say a person sticks his hand out from one rishus to another rishus. Did the Chacham make a knas? Did they make a fine that the person has to stand in that same fashion the entire Shabbos? He can't draw his hand back in. And of course, the concern is that if they do make this fine, maybe the person will drop the item and he'll actually then actually transgress by doing an akira and hanacha, by moving something from one rishus to another rishus. As long as he keeps his hand outstretched without doing a hanacha, without placing it down on the ground, he'll be okay. But the question is, do we make this knas that he has to stand there the whole Shabbos? So the Gemara said it depends if he's going to return his hand to the same chotzer, or he's going to try to move his hand to another chotzer. That's what the Gemara here now says. Kan l'chotzer acheres. Here we're talking about to another chotzer. Rashi explains, going back on the last amid, lo'osa chotzer shu omed besocha mutter lachzira. If it's the same chotzer that he's standing in, he can return his hand. Aval l'chotzer acheres hasmucha la'aser l'zorkam. But to throw the item to another chotzer that's nearby, that is going to be aser, and the Gemara now explains why. Kedeboy minei Rava me Rav Nachman, like Rava asked Rav Nachman, Haisa yadam alei peiros v'otzia lachutz. If somebody's hand was filled with fruit and he stuck it out to the other rishus, mahu lahachazira la'osa chotzer. What's the halacha regarding returning it to that same chotzer? Amar lei mutter. He said it's mutter. L'chotzer acheres mahu. Then he asked him, what about to another chotzer? Amar lei aser. So he said that's aser. Umay shna, and what's the difference? He said l'chiseichel ala kura de milcha, which Rashi explains meaning. He says basically when you measure for me a core of salt, which is just an expression, then I'll explain to you what the difference is between if you throw it to a different chotzer or that chotzer. And he explains, Hasam over there, lo is avida machshavto. Over there, his machshava, what he originally intended to do, did not get finished. He ended up bringing it back to the same chotzer, so they didn't make a gezerah, they didn't give a knas. Hacha is avida machshavto. But over here, where he's transferring it to another chotzer, where he ends up doing that which he originally intended, so they did make a knas, and they said you have to keep your hand in that position, or not transfer it to another chotzer. Rashi explains, this is, he says it in jest. He had responded to him, when you measure for me a core of salt, then I'll give you the reason. Rashi here on machshavto sheneskaven lefanosa mechotzer zu. It doesn't necessarily mean that he wanted to transfer it from this chotzer to that particular chotzer, but his original intention was to get it out of this chotzer. So lo neskayim, if he has to bring it back to if he brings it back to the original chotzer, it was never neskayim, that idea to get it out of this chotzer. Hilgach lo gazer, so they didn't make a gezerah. Avol lechotzer acheres neskayim machshavto. But if he goes ahead and transfers it to a different chotzer, then indeed his original thought is going to be neskayim. The gazer dilma zimna acharisi shadi l'rishus harabim. Therefore, we're afraid that one time, maybe a different time, he's actually going to throw it to rishus harabim. Gemara now continues at the two dots gufa. Going back to the statement we made before, it said, Boy Rav Bevi Varabaya Hidvik Pas Betanur, Hitiru lo lirdosa kodam shiavli dechiv chatas o lo hitiru. So again, the original shaila was, if a person sticks a piece of bread into the oven, it's baking on Shabbos, is he allowed to take it out of the oven before it ends up baking, and he gets a chi of chatas, or do they not allow it? Amar le Ravacha Barabai le Ravina. So Ravacha Barabai said to Ravina, Hechi dami, what's the case? Ilema b'shogeg v'lo idkar le. Now, if he did this whole thing b'shogeg and he didn't remember anyways, lamani tir, there's no one to allow to do this because he doesn't even realize he did something wrong. Viela lav the hadr v'idkar. So obviously the case is that he did this thing b'shogeg and then he remembers and now he wants to remove it. So mi mechayev. In that case, he's not chayev chatos anyways. V'atanan, because we learned in a Mishnah, kol chayev chatos einon chayavin ad shetei tchilosan shkaga v'sofan shkaga. Halacha is that you only chayev chatos anyway if the beginning and the end is a shogeg. So the statement of kodem sheyavli de chayev chatos wouldn't be accurate in that case because there's no chatos. Ella b'mezid. But then you're going to say, okay, the whole thing was b'mezid. The question is, can he take it off before he does it on purpose, before he finishes doing it on purpose? And now it's going to be an issue of skila. So kodem shiavli de'eser skila mi baile. But it didn't say skila in that question. It said chata. So the point of the Gemara really is that we can never figure out a way to make this question be about a carbon chatas. So Amar Rav Shela says, liolam b'shogeg. We're talking about b'shogeg. L'man hitiru lacheirim. We're not talking about the person who put the bread in there in the first place. He doesn't remember it all. He's a shogeg 100%. But there's other people who saw what happened. They want to know if they can remove the item to save this person from a carbon chatas. So the Gemara says, Ma'askav lo Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes asked on this, do we tell one person you should sin in order that your friend should get a merit? In other words, that's a ridiculous question. We would never allow someone else to do a sin, because we said before that it is an Isser D'Rabbanan to remove this piece of dough. So we would never allow one person to do a sin to be over an Isser D'Rabbanan to save the other guy. So the Gemara answers, Elo Amar Rav Ashi. Rather, Rav Ashi says, you're right, we cannot come up with a case here where he's shogeg the entire way, and the issue is he's trying to avoid a carbon chatas. Liolam b'mezid, really we are talking about b'mezid. Ve'ema kodem shiyavu lidei iser skila. And rather you should say that we're talking about what he does b'mezid, and you have to change the text, that the question was, can he take this pas out of the oven in order to avoid an iser skila? Rav Acha brings Rav Masni la behedya. Rav Acha, the son of Rav, actually taught this explicitly. He didn't teach it as a question. He taught it as a statement. Amar Rav Bevi bar Abaye, that Rav Bevi bar Abaye says, Hidvik pas betanur, hitiru lo lirdosa kodem shiavu lidei iser skila. That if somebody sticks some pas in the sides of a tanur, they did allow him to take it off before he comes to an iser skila. Gemara now continues at the two dots, quoting the Mishnah, Pashat ha'ani es yado. It says if the ani sticks his hand out, so the halacha is that if he takes it from the balabais, he brings it inside, or vice versa, then he's doing both an akira and an hanacha, and therefore he's going to be chayiv. So the Gemara asks, "Am I chayiv? Why should he be chayiv?" An akira v'hanacha me'algavi makom dalid al dalid v'leka. The halacha is that in order for something to be considered an akira, or in order for something to be considered a hanacha, doesn't matter here, it's got to be from a makom dalid al dalid, something that's 4 by 4 tefachim. And here, either the akira or the hanacha is coming. Is being done into or out of somebody's hand, and a person's hand is certainly not 4 by 4 tefachim. So how is it that the person could possibly be chayiv in the case of the Mishnah? Rabba says Hamani Rabbi Akiva. So you can answer that the Mishnah is authored by Rabbi Akiva. The Amar lo ba'inan makam arba al arba. Rabbi Akiva says we don't need the area to be 4 by 4 tefachim. The Tanan we learned in the Mishnah Hazorik Rishus Hayachid, or Rishus Hayachid, or Rishus Harabim be'emtza. The Mishnah here is discussing somebody throws from one Rishus Hayachid to another Rishus Hayachid with Rishus Harabim in the middle. Now, Rishus Hayachid to Rishus Hayachid in general is not a dough rice. It's not considered transferring from one Rishus to another. But if a person goes from Rishus Hayachid to Rishus Harabim, it is. Question is, what happens if it goes through a Rishus Harabim? So Rabbi Akiva mechayev, v'chachamim pocher. Rabbi Akiva says chayev in that case. The chachamim say poter because it never landed in the Rishus Harabim. What's the explanation of Rabbi Akiva? Rabbi Akiva savar amrinan kluta kamisha unchadamya. Rabbi Akiva holds if it's kolut, if it's in the airspace of the Rishus Harabim, it says if it rested in the Rishus Harabim. V'rabbanan savri lo amrinan kluta kamisha unchadamya. And the Rabbanan say we don't say kluta kamisha unchadamya. Now, by definition, if we're saying kluta kamisha huncha, you're obviously saying you do not need a hanacha on a makom that's dalid al dalid, and therefore the author of our Mishnah could be Rabbi Akiva, who presumably does not have this requirement. The Gemara says l'meimra, but do you mean to say, according to this, because this is all Rabbah telling us that the author of our Mishnah is Rabbi Akiva, so l'meimra, do you mean to say the pshita le l'Rabbah de v'kluta kamisha unchadamya, that the argument between Rabbi Akiva and the Chacham is whether or not we say kluta kamisha huncha? That's going to be an issue on the following Amid. We'll see on Daf Dalid Amid Beis what the other possibility is for what the machlokas is between Rabbi Akiva and the Chacham.